Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Hanafi Fiqh class. We are doing the kitab known as I'Ala'u Sunan of Maulana Zafar Ahmad Thanvi rahimahullah. And tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we are continuing on from page 350 of volume number 1. In our previous class, a month ago, we had just completed the chapter with regards to the leftover water and, everything to do with donkeys and onegas and horses and all those animals. So tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we're moving on to a new chapter. So let us begin. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So the chapter is Babu Dalili ala jawaz al-wudu'i bi nabeedh tamar. The chapter of to prove permissibility of making wudu with nabeedh of dates. Tamar is dates and nabeedh is a particular drink. It exists in the Sunnah. It is for example, you take some water and you throw some raisins in it, or you throw dates in it. Yeah, it's be speaking specifically in this context here was what it was used with dates. So you throw the dates in it and you leave it in there, and what happens if you throw it in the morning, you drink it in the evening. That's how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would do it, and Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to put it and take it on a journey with them. So what happens is the dates become soft when you throw them inside there, and the water takes on a date sort of a taste. So to say, it's cool drink that was being made. So nonetheless, that's what would be done, but there is a limit to this. If you leave it in there too long, it becomes alcohol. So that is why there's a time limit attached to Nabeezh. But anyway, we can deal with the in-depth rulings of Nabeezh at a later stage, inshallah ta'ala, when we are doing that. Right now, we are just speaking about making wudu with Nabeezh at least. So let's see what it says. So hadith number 276. عن أبي سعيد مولى بني هاشم عن حماد بن سلمة عن علي بن زيد بن جدعان عن أبي رافع عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال له ليلة الجن أمعك ماء. Okay, let's do the first part. Abu Sa'id, who is the free slave of Banu Hashim, he narrates from Hamad ibn Salama, from Ali ibn Zayd ibn Juda'an, from Abu Rafi', who narrates from Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked him on the night of the jinn. What is Laylatul Jinn? Laylatul Jinn is when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam went out one night to go and meet with some of the jinn and teach them and things of the sort. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam took Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu with. The only thing was that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him, stay here, don't move from this point. And so Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu stayed there because, it's one thing for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam to be dealing with the jinn, but not everybody is. The world of the jinn is not exactly like the world of the human, so to speak. So nonetheless, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him, you stay right here. So in any case, that's what is referred to as Laylatul Jinn. So on that night, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked him, Ama'aka ma'un, do you have any water with you? Qala la. He said, no, I don't have any water. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Ama'aka nabeedhun, do you have nabeedh with you? قال أحسبه. Now قال, yeah, who's saying this? This is the narrator who's speaking, and he say أحسبه, I think Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, when narrating this hadith, I think he said, yes, I have nabeedh with me. فتوضأ به. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam made wudu with that nabeedh. أخرجه أحمد والدارقطني. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah and Imam Ad-Darqutni rahimahullah report the hadith. Imam Az-Zayla'i, he says, قلت أبو سعيد من رجال البخاري ثقة وثقه أحمد وابن معين والطبراني والبغوي والدارقطني وابن شاهين كذا في التهذيب. So he says, the first narrator, the freed slave of Banu Hashim, which you can see عن أبي سعيد. This is the Abu Sa'id that's being spoken about. He is a narrator found in Bukhari. He's credited as being reliable by Imam Ahmad, Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in, Imam al-Tabarani, Imam al-Baghawi, Imam al-Daraqutni, Imam Ibn Shaheen, and others as well. And you'll find this mentioned in At-Tahdhib. You know, you got Tahdhib al-Kamal, Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, Taqrib al-Tahdhib. You got many kitabs of Asma al-Rijal. You have, for example, take Tahdhib al-Tahdhib and Taqrib al-Tahdhib, the kitabs of Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, rahimahullah. And these kitabs are like Al-Kashif of Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. They are kitabs which focus on the narrators found within the 6 books of Hadith: Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Nasai, Ibn Majah. So if you're wanting to know about the grading of any particular one of them, these are the books you'd be going to. So anyway, because this Abu Sa'id is one of the narrators of Bukhari, that's why he's mentioning here. You can find it in this kitab. He says, as far as Imam Hamad ibn Salama is concerned, he's min Rijal al-Jama'a. He's from the narrators of the Jama'a. Jama'a here is a terminology used again in the field of Hadith. Amongst the ulama of Hadith, they have various terms: thalatha, arba'a, khamsa, jama'a, and so on and so forth, and even amongst themselves. So Imam Ibn Hajar would have one terminology. Imam what's his name now, maybe Imam Shawkani would have a different one. So they would say rawahu thalatha, the 3 reported. But who are those 3? Sometimes it differ, but nonetheless. So when they talk about Rijalul Jama'ah, generally you can say the main muhaddithin, the famous ones, he's a narrator found in all their books, in simple terms. And he is thiqa. So, you know, Imam al-Zaylai doesn't go beyond this point. Now, there's one narrator in the chain who isn't exactly commented on over here. I'll just touch on it for the sake of it, since we are doing hadith at the same time. So you've got Abu Sa'id over here, you've got Imam Muhammad ibn Salama, then you've got Ali ibn Zayd ibn Jud'an, then you've got Abu Rafi', then Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. Now Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu is out of the question. As-sahabatu kulluhum adul. All of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum are reliable, trustworthy, and upright. So they don't feature in the field of Jarh wa Ta'dil because it's Ta'dil for every last one of them. Abu Rafi' is not mentioned in the chain by, or at least not commented on by Imam Zaylai, which has been quoted here. But nonetheless, the real issue amongst the muhaddithin would be regarding Ali ibn Zayd ibn Jud'an. He is the mukhtalaf fih narrator in the chain here. As a result of which, you may find, or you will find, some of the muhaddithin who would grade this chain now as being weak because of Ali ibn Zayd ibn Jud'an. But other muhaddithin say no, and they grade him as being reliable and trustworthy. So you have the likes of Imam At-Tirmidhi and a number of other muhaddithin who also graded him as being acceptable. As a result of which, he's deemed as being a mukhtalaf fih narrator, somebody where there's difference of opinion about. And that's the thing about hadith. When people don't have understanding of hadith, and hadith is a foreign topic, they may think they know hadith, but hadith is very much a foreign subject to them. Then they think Imam Bukhari said it's weak, boom, end of story. Imam Muslim said it's weak. It don't work that way. Imam Bukhari can grade somebody weak and Imam Muslim accept him. For example, since we are in the field, like I say, this kitab deals with both hadith and fiqh and usul and mustalah al-hadith and asma al-rijal and tabaqat and, with many different sciences all at the same time. So there's no harm in mentioning it, even though I know I'm digressing from the subject. But for example, one of the criteria for Imam Bukhari for the acceptance of a hadith to be deemed as being sahih, according to Imam Bukhari, in order for a hadith to be deemed as being sahih in his book, it has to be proven that narrator A met narrator B. For Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, he says mu'asara is sufficient. Meaning, if it's proven that these 2 people lived in the same time, that's enough for Imam Muslim. Because if they lived in the same time, we don't literally need to prove that, yes, on this day at that time, he met him there. We say they lived in the same time, so nothing prevents them from being able to have met. So that's how Imam Muslim say, no problem, that hadith is sahih. But for Imam Bukhari, if it's not proven that A met B, then he would not consider that to be sahih. And that's one out of many different points between muhaddithin. So you have a criteria that Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim both drop. Then now, as far as the 6 books of hadith go, as far as grading is concerned, if you put it according to authenticity, then it goes like this: Bukhari, Muslim, then Nasai. Out of the 4 Sunan, Nasai is deemed to be the highest. Then Nasai, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, in that order. That's how the levels of authenticity, the criteria, the requirements for sihha, all those sort of things go. That's how they end up in rank, so to speak, from one to the other. So what the other 5 may not accept, Imam Ibn Majah would say, I don't have a problem with it. And that is why the science of hadith, and I've mentioned this a couple of times now already, that the science of hadith is ijtihadi. It is not something cut and dry and set in stone. Today a lot of time people only know of hadith because they hear Salafis speak about it. So they think that what the Salafis say is the be all and end all. It doesn't work that way. There is generally what people understand as being the principles of hadith is actually the principles of the Shafi'i madhab in hadith. Because Imam Dhahabi, Hafiz al-Iraqi, Imam Ibn Hajar, Imam al-Nawawi, Khatib al-Baghdadi, you take your pick of the big names, Imam Ibn as-Salah, Imam al-Sakhawi, Imam Suyuti. I mean, when you start quoting name after name after name, every last one, Imam Ibn Kathir, Imam Dhahabi, all of them were all Shafi'i. So, when you're talking about in the field of hadith, the pioneers who laid down or at least I should say, who wrote the most famous of all books, it was the Shafi'is. As a result of which, some people tend to think that the Shafi'i viewpoint is the be-all and end-all, but it's not. The Hanafi madhab actually differs from the Shafi'i madhab, like we differ in fiqh, so we differ in our understanding of hadith too, the terminologies and the science behind it and all that sort of stuff. Nonetheless, my point being is that I was speaking about the fact that the science of hadith is ijtihadi. And what that basically means now is that one imam grading a narrator as being weak and another one grading him as being strong is a extremely common occurrence. And I'll give you an example. You have, for example, you may not even have heard about this in your entire life. Maybe you know of 2 great ai famous imams of hadith, Imam Abu Zur'a and Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi, the Raziyan. They're not father and son, is Imam Ibn Abi Hatim, who's the son of Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi. But anyway, so these 2 famous, forerunners in the field of Jarh wa Ta'dil and everything. Okay, before I actually come to them, you have an Imam, the likeness of Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah. Who is there that don't know Imam Bukhari? Now, Imam Bukhari's kitab, one of his kitabs on Asma al-Rijal, is his kitab known as At-Tarikh al-Kabir. He's got At-Tarikh al-Saghir as well. It's not a book on history, it's a book on Asma al-Rijal. So it's a hadith-related book. The names of the tarikh of the narrators to be found who quoted a hadith. So anyway, so you'll find, for example, Imam Bukhari come along and he grades this one as being weak and that one as being weak. Yes, and nobody questions that. Yet, Imam Abu Zur'a and Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi, they said Imam Bukhari was weak. They did not accept the hadith from Imam Bukhari. Now, let this sink in for a moment. These 2 imams whose rank is unparalleled and it's unanimously agreed upon without question, the 2 of them said you cannot accept from Imam Bukhari. And why is this? And this shows how stories also went around. And it was rather ironic thinking about it. Imam Bukhari had graded Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah as being weak. He said according to Imam Bukhari, he heard a story, a claim that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah believed the Quran was created, which is a false lie, but that was the story that reached Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari said, no, you can't accept Imam Abu Hanifa, because then in that case he was not from Ahlul Sunnah, he was a Mubtadi. Imam Abu Zur'a and Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi, they said you can't accept from Imam Bukhari for the very exact same reason, because the story reached them to say that Imam Bukhari believed the Quran was created. So that's how, the field of Jarh wa Ta'adil, it's not a field for babies playing with Lego blocks here to also want to have something to say about every single topic. It's an extremely deep, in-depth field that should not be delved in unless you're a person of steadfastness, firmness, and understanding. So I'm not the type to normally mention things like this, like Imam saying so and so is weak and that and that. It's just to show you the point that if we were to just take the first statement of any Imam, and we're not talking about any small Imam here, we're talking about Imam from the Salaf, like Imam Abu Zur'a and Imam Abu Hatim. They were contemporaries of Imam Bukhari that early days, and they said you can't accept, or at least I should say they rejected Imam Bukhari. So if we say that is a criteria, then we can't accept Bukhari. So if Imam Bukhari grades something as being weak, doesn't mean we reject it. So that is why Ai have this entire science. What is the so and so said this? Why did he say this? What is his reasoning? What, and so on and so forth. So it's a deep thing between just saying, oh, and so graded him as being weak fictional story. It doesn't work that way. So I know I could probably speak a whole week on the topic, just on the varying gradings between the various ai that besides all the other things related to hadith. But nonetheless, the point was simply just to show that even though Ali ibn Zayd ibn Jud'an may have been graded as being weak by some muhaddithin, the fact of the matter is other muhaddithin accepted him. So we are not going to be swayed by a Salafi will come along, you can't accept Ali ibn Zayd ibn Jud'an because so-and-so said he was weak and this one said he was weak. We say, no, you don't understand the field of hadith, so we bichara, we can do nothing about you. But as far as the ulama of hadith are concerned, they know that it is like you have your view, these ai have their view as to why they accept these narrations as being reliable. Anyway, let's not take up too much time. Let's move on. I know I've already spent too much time on that topic, but anyway, moving on. حديث number 277. حدثنا لعباس بن الوليد الدمشقي، حدثنا مروان بن محمد، حدثنا ابن لهيعة، حدثنا قيس بن الحجاج عن حنش الصنعاني عن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لابن مسعود ليلة الجن: معك ماء؟ قال: لا، إلا نبيذ في سطيحة. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: تمرة طيبة وماء طهور، صب علي. قال: فصببت عليه فتوضأ. أخرجه ابن ماجه ورجاله كلهم ثقات إلا لهيعة فقد اختلف فيه، وبه أعله الدارقطني في سننه، ولكن ذكرنا غير مرة أنه حسن الحديث قد احتج به غير واحد، وحسن له الهيثمي في المجمع، وقال قد حسن له الترمذي، وقال البخاري في التاريخ الصغير له عن يحيى بن سعيد أنه كان لا يرى به بأسا فالحديث حسن. Okay. Next narration, and I think we'll end on this point because there's no more time left. Al-Abbas ibn al-Walid al-Dimashqi narrates from Marwan ibn Muhammad from Abdullah ibn Lahi'a, very famous narrator. Abdullah ibn Lahi'a, who narrates from Qais ibn al-Hajjaj, who narrates from Hansh al-Sana'ani, from Hadrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, who narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu on the night of the jinn, same incident of above, that do you have water with you? And Hadrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, no, except some nabeed in this container. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, tamratun tayyiba, pure dates, and wama'un tahur, and purifying water. So subba alayya, pour for me. And so he poured the nabeed, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam made wudhoo with it. Imam Ibn Majah rahimahullah reports this hadith. The narrators are all authentic, with the exception of Abdullah ibn Lahi'a. He's a mukhtalafi narrator. And on account of him, Imam Darul rahimahullah had rejected, or at least found a flaw in the narration on account of him being in the chain. But like Marana Zafar says, like how we've mentioned more than one time, Abdullah ibn Lahiya is actually graded as being Hasan, because more than one Imam has used his narrations as for proof. And Imam al-Haythami in Majma' al-Zawaid, he has graded him as being Hasan. And he mentions that Imam al-Tirmidhi grades him as being Hassan, and Imam Bukhari in At-Tarikh al-Saghir. I made mention just a moment ago in the previous hadith about At-Tarikh al-Kabir, and I mentioned that he also had the Tarikh al-Saghir. That's he's quoting now that very kitab, At-Tarikh al-Saghir of Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, wherein he mentions that Imam Yahya ibn Sa'id said that, or at least he did not find a problem with the narrations of Abdullah ibn Lahi'a. So in that case, the hadith is Hasan. So I suppose it was no harm me mentioning what I mentioned previously about the, even though it took about 10 minutes, about how Mukhtalafi narrations work. But as you can see over here, while Imam ad-Darqutni said, I have a problem with the narration because Abdullah ibn Lahiya is here. But here you have Imam Tirmidhi and Imam Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, and you've got Imam al-Haythami and others saying he's acceptable. So one and another, like one Imam does his ijtihad and the next one does his ijtihad, and they have varying their viewpoints at the end of the day. So one thing to speak quickly about from a point of a slight fiqhi aspect over here. Nabeezh, like I say, it's permissible for that beginning period until, or at least I should say, it should be drank up as soon as possible and not allowed to reach the point of fermentation where it now becomes alcoholic. The minute it becomes alcoholic, it becomes haram, and you have to pour it out, throw it away. You can't keep on to it anymore. So what a person can understand from this narration here and how we can apply it into our life today is that if you've ever made a nabeed yourself, you take your dates, your grapes, whatever not your grapes, your dates or your raisins, you throw it in your water, you cover it up just to prevent things from falling inside it, and you will notice a couple of hours later, the water will still be clear, but what you will start tasting little by little is the taste of the dates or the raisins that's inside there, because obviously it's slowly breaking down in that water. And obviously, if you were cooking it, the hotter the water is, the faster it would end up reaching fermentation level. But nonetheless, so what it shows here is that this nabeed was in its early stage, as a result of which it was pure dates that was thrown into clean water. So it was still early stages, thus there was no harm in making wudu with it. If it was, for example, and I made mention of this in, I don't know, did we do it here or are they back in the days of doing Nurul Idah, when I explained the fact that when something changes its name, and this was just my own terminology, that when something changes its name, then it ceases to be suitable for wudu. So in other words, what I mentioned was that when something is called tea, you've got water, you throw a tea bag inside it, it becomes black, color, taste, smell, all three change. That is now no longer suitable for wudu. It's changed, it's got a new name even, it's now called tea. So that's generally how it would work. So when you have all the qualities of the water changing, in that case it's not suitable for wudu no more. But nabeed takes a while to work before it will actually reach the point of having color, taste, smell, because you can stand it there for probably 10 hours before you're really going to see a change in the color, and the taste may still be weak after 8 hours. So so it takes some time. Take a tea bag, dip him in the water, take him out straight away, and you'll see the difference in the color and the smell and the taste with immediate effect. So when you have something, any type of situation, let's put it this way, you have a bar of soap and you've got a bucket over there, and the bar of soap falls into the water in the bucket. You take the soap out of the bucket. Obviously, there'll be some bubbles over there, which has come from the soap reaching the water. Now, depending if you've got some fragrant smelling soap, you will get that smell in the water too. You may even get a bit of the taste in it, but the water's color will still be clear. This water will still be suitable for wudu. It's a different story now. You go take washing powder and you throw it in the water, you shake it up. It's still essentially water, but the color, the smell, the taste, everything is changed. It's now full, or at least, it's like grayed out water on account of the washing powder. Now, that's no longer suitable for wudu. So that's how generally the ruling is working, and that's what we are deriving from this hadith. That as long, despite the fact that something was thrown into the water, but as long as it has not become a complete new thing, if it was like that's why I said, if it was late stage Nabeezh, where it's almost reaching alcoholic level, in that case, even though it hadn't reached alcoholic level, but you can't now use it at that late stage where all the qualities have changed. It's now you know, like you don't have a taste of water no more in it, then it's a bit too late. But in its early stage, there's no harm in it. Any case, before our time runs out, let's finish off what we were mentioning over here. So I always mention about Abdullah ibn Lahiya. In fact, I just mentioned was it not last night, the night before that, I think I was speaking, or could have been on Monday night in the tafsir class, I'm unsure. But anyway, Abdullah ibn Lahiya is a very famous narrator. You'll find his name time and again. He was, as far as reliability and things is concerned, he was a pious person, uprighteous person, truthful person, everything. Now, Abdullah ibn Lahiya had a weak memory. Like I mean, just about every single last one of us, we've got weak memories. So as a result, he had all of his ahadith used to be written down in books. And whenever he would narrate, people would come travel from far and wide to sit and learn by Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya. And they would come and he would narrate from his kitabs. Like I'm sitting with a laptop in front of me because I don't have a hard copy of I'ala Sunan, but you know, so he had his kitabs like this and he would narrate from it. So like I'm reading the kitab and narrating to you. So anyway, so this is how he went for most of his life. And then in his older age, his house had caught on fire, it burnt out, and all of his kitabs inside had burnt out. As a result of which, Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya went from having a huge collection of ahadith, which was totally authentic. Every last narration of his was deemed as being reliable and authentic, which passed through him. But then what had happened now is that Abdullah ibn Lahiya, he hadn't memorized the ahadith. Yes, he memorized it in our fashion. So, you know, I'll give you homework. Let's put it this way. Take just this one narration, hadith number 277. Memorize it with the chain of narration, top to bottom, exactly as is. And I'll give you until next week and see how many of you will be able to narrate it without making one mistake in it. Now that is what had happened. The Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya, he was still reliable, trustworthy in everything. He was still a truthful person and all. But now what happened? People still came to him for a hadith, but he no longer had his kitab. So he started narrating from memory. And as a result of which, sometimes he would say it's reported from A from B, whereas in reality it was reported from B from C. So he would sometimes mix up the names and things like this here. As a result of that, he got deemed as being weak from that point onwards. But other ulama, like I say, differ with that in any case. Nonetheless, so that's Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya. So he says here that more than one Imam had graded him as being reliable and authentic. And I always mention this fact as well, that the Abadilah's narration from Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya are what are deemed as being reliable. Who are Abadila? Abadila is plural of the name Abdullah. There are certain Imam of Hadith whose name were Abdullah, who had narrated from Imam Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, and their narrations are deemed as being authentic. And one simple way of following through with this is looking. If you find Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak narrating from Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya, you know without question that narration is authentic. Why? Because Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak narrated from Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya at the time when Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya had all of his books. Imam Abdullah ibn Mubarak left him, moved on his way, traveled to other places, learned by other ulama, and Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya still had his kitabs. So, in other words, the entire duration that these Imam whose names were Abdullah were learning by Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya, he was narrating all from his kitabs. Thus, all the narrations they have is reliable. But those who came and learned from him only at the ending part of his life, where he used to make some mix-ups, those narrations are where some of the muhaddithin now say, look, you know, he's narrating it like this here, so, and they have some issues with it, like Imam Darul rahimahullah and others. But be that as it may, long story short, we as Ahnaf, we grade Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya as being Hasan in hadith. And as you know, Hassan is a hadith which is suitable to make amal upon, even from a fiqhi perspective, to derive masail and stuff like this. Here, the narrations reach that level that are reported through Imam Abdullah ibn Lahiya, rahimahullah. That being said, we'll stop on this point here, inshallah. I know I've already taken half an hour of your time, and we only actually managed to do 2 ahadith. So, with that being said, we will end then on this point here for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Until next time, we end and we say, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad, subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.